alcohol is a covalent molecule which contains the functional group called the hydroxyl group, which can be represented by the symbols OH. Straight-chained alcohols can be systematically named, indicating the position of the hydroxyl group from structural formula containing no more than 8 atoms. Here we can see that both examples we have 4 carbon atoms, but the position of the hydroxyl group is different. And today we're going to be looking at naming straight-chained alcohols. The prefix is the first part of the name, which tells us how many carbon atoms are present. So when we're using our data booklet, meth would tell us we've got 1 carbon, eth 2, prop 3. However, the ol tells us that this belongs to the family of the alcohols and contains the OH group, which is known as the hydroxyl group. The number before the ol in the name tells us which carbon atom the position of the hydroxyl group is found on. So let's have a go at naming some straight-chained alcohols. The first thing that we want to do is find the longest carbon chain, and we need to name this using the prefix. So to do that, we need to number the top line and the bottom line of the carbons to find the longest chain. So in this one, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the prefix for this would be pentan. We then need to identify the number in which the hydroxyl group is on the lowest carbon. So if we identify the position of the OH group, we can see that that can either be on carbon 1 or carbon 5. What's the lowest number? The lowest position is number 1. And therefore, we then have to end the name in ol, as this belongs to the alcohols. So you can pause the video and have a go at this one, and when you want to resume, I will go through the answer with you. So remember, we have to find the longest carbon chain. So if we number these, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the top line and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the bottom line. So we've got a total of 5 carbons, which means the prefix is going to be pentan. We need to identify the position of the hydroxyl group. And if we put a box around that, we can see that the position of the hydroxyl group can either be on carbon number 2 or carbon number 4. So we're going to be using the top line numbers. And therefore, this is going to be called pentan 2 ol. So to find the longest carbon chain, we want to number the top of the carbons and the bottom of the carbons. We can see that we've got 5 carbons in a row, so the prefix is going to be pentan. We want to look at the position of which the hydroxyl group's found, and we can see that we've put a box around that. The only position that hydroxyl group can be on is carbon number 3, so it doesn't matter if we're using the top lines or the bottom lines. So the name of this alcohol will be pentan 3ol. Remember, we want to find the longest carbon chain, so we number the top of the carbons and then we do the reverse on the bottom. We can see that there's 4 carbons in a row, so the prefix for this carbon is going to be butan. If we put a box around the position which the hydroxyl group can be found, the only position it can be would be if we're using the top line, position 3, or if we're using the bottom line, position 2. What's the lowest position that the hydroxyl group can be found is position 2, so the name of this alcohol is butan 2ol. So this one's a little bit trickier. What we can see is this alcohol looks a little bit different because it looks like it's got a branch where the CH3 is given in shortened structural formula rather than full structural formula. But we're looking for the longest carbon chain we can trace with our finger without having to lift it. And what we can see is if we number the top of the carbons, we've got 4 carbons in a row, and we can number those backwards on the bottom line. If we put a box around the carbon which contains the hydroxyl group, we can see that the positions that the hydroxyl group can only be position 4 or position 1. We always identify the number which is lower, which means the name of this alcohol is actually butan 1ol. And we have to be careful of this, as this is the style of question that they'll put into the past paper multiple choice. So here are some examples for you to have a go. If you want to pause the video and write down your answers, once you're ready, if you press resume, the answer will pop up on the screen. This past paper question is from the National 5 2014, written 8B Part 1. A student made the ester above using ethanoic acid and the following alcohol. Name the functional group present in this alcohol. Remember, the functional group in the alcohol is the OH, which is known as the hydroxyl group. This past paper questions from the National 5, 2018, multiple choice 13. The systematic name for the above compound is. So what we're wanting to do is we want to number our top line of our carbons for our longest chain, and we'll number them backwards on the bottom line. We can see that it's got 5 carbons in the longest chain, which means the prefix is going to be pentan. So the only potential answers it can be is A or B. We want to put a box around the carbon which contains the hydroxyl group, and we want to look at the potential numbers. The numbers can be position 2 or position 4. We always select the lowest position. So the correct answer to this is multiple choice answer A, pentan to all.